Sir, my name is Brenda Haywood, and I'm the chair, and this is the vice chair.
Sorry, do hit the button.
Oh, I do have to?
Just flip it and wait 5 seconds. You ready? All right.
Again, we're glad you're here. I'm Brenda Haywood. I'm the chair, and we have the vice chair. Just introduce yourself.
Kathleen Murphy. Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Sharon Hurt. And you are?
I'm Robert O'Quinn, and I'm self-nominated for the Community Oversight Board. I took the initiative because chance favors the brave. And you have 3 questions. Briefly explain my interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons I wish to serve. Well, number 1, I want it to succeed. Number 2, I care about Nashville. I've lived here a long time. I have friends on the police department, and I think that it's a good opportunity to help the community and the police interact better. I think that, you know, it's a balancing act to balance safety and concerns for criminal justice and the dignity of the citizen. And that, I hope, is what this is going to be. Please describe my background and or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues. Civil rights means different things to different people. I think that I grew up post-segregation and all that other jazz. I went to Mississippi State, and so civil rights, it's something, for me, it's a black and white television thing. I go to bed at 9:15 at night. I had the same job for 30 years. And my concern is that we balance civil rights with civil responsibilities. And so that's what I hope the COB will be involved in. My goal is that the sons and daughters of former slaves and the sons and daughters of former slave owners can sit down at the table of brotherhood together and work some things out and make some progress. If you have a minute or some time, there are other COBs on YouTube, and they love to get bogged down in minutia, writing training manuals, all this other thing. I think if it's going to be a success in Nashville, we need to stay focused on what our priorities are. I've got many years working with volunteers. Volunteers are different than employees. They don't have to show up if they don't want to. One of the things that I noticed on the other boards is people tend to over-obligate themselves, and then you have committees and subcommittees meeting, and you can't be at 2 places at the same time. I've chaired many meetings for volunteers and charity fundraisers. Matter of fact, we're having a chili cook-off at Mill Creek Lodge Saturday, and it's for the benefit of the Williamson County Meals on Wheels. 100% of the proceeds go to that. Please describe my background, experience, and or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices. I took the Citizens Police Academy, I don't even know, 1996, and flew in the helicopter, rode sea detail in every sector. We didn't have precincts then. And it was an eye-opening experience. Some people, self-included, just tell me what you want me to do, I'll do it. Some people have to be dealt with force as necessary. My criminal justice experience, there's very few people who haven't been either to law school or prison that have my experience with the criminal justice system here in Nashville. And it's kind of funny, me coming back into this courthouse after 20 years and all the troubles I had way back when. If you're looking for a funny story, back then I spent so much time in the courthouse, the security people would wave me and my sister through because they thought we were lawyers. So that was 20 years ago today, and I think I have time to answer any questions you may have.
Why were you in court?
Oh, I had a bad divorce. I was convicted of stalking. 20 years ago, I was charged with aggravated child abuse for spanking my son. and leaving bruises on his bottom. I was convicted of simple assault. I'm neither a felon nor a child abuser. And, well, I learned a lot.
How will that experience influence how you would operate on the Community Oversight Board, do you think?
Well, I've been on both sides of handcuffs. The first time I saw guys playing basketball on the roof of the jail was from a Metro Police helicopter. The second time, I was the guy throwing the ball. So just being able to draw on that experience, realizing, you know, when you have a board like this, you're going to have a lot of testimony. You're going to have to separate the wheat from the chaff. There's going to be a lot of shaggy dog stories. They're not going to be these, God, I hope they're not going to be these huge lethal force cases. It's going to be, I didn't like how he treated me when he pulled me over. That kind of stuff. I didn't think it was shoplifting. That kind of thing. So I'll be able to, with my years of experience sitting in a courtroom, hopefully bring some of that to bear.
I have a question. Prior to the amendment passing, were you in favor of the Oversight Board?
Oh, I was against it. Because the ones I've seen on TV have a tendency to just go off the rails. And we have to have police. If you make that job where everybody's second and third guesses and you don't pay them much to begin with, there's not going to be people that want that job.
Yes.
And then what are we going to be doing?
Thank you.
So what are the ones that you have watched on TV?
Let's see, Portland, Oregon has one. That was ordered by the Department of Justice. And I watched one meeting that lasted 3.5 hours. Now, I've been on straight commission for 30 years. I can't imagine sitting somewhere for 3.5 hours. And these are all volunteers. The tendency for that board in particular is first they want to start having meetings twice a month, then they want to start getting paid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So if RCOB, I can imagine, because we all have sat through boards and commissions and we sat through council last night, we're here today. This is not volunteer, but you could define it somewhat to be. So you will be sitting, if you are elected, those meetings could go for 3 hours. Those, your fellow members, maybe those people who want to, you know, talk about a lot of different things that you might not feel relevant. So how do you think that you will react or interact with your co-members if that's the case?
Oh, I've sat in many meetings where people talked about stuff that I didn't think was relevant. It's just part of it. And as long as they give me a break, they can go as long as they want.
Okay, since we're down to less than 2 minutes now, if you would complete this statement, I would be more appreciative. Based on me being, or possibly being selected to be a member of the Community Oversight Board, I would just like for the community at large to know.
Well, number one, I'll be professional. I'll show up on time. My goal is to listen to everybody that thinks they need to be heard. It's a great opportunity for healing. And that's pretty much all I got.
All right.
Anything else?
Yes, you mentioned earlier that you think that you'd have to stay focused on priorities. Who sets those priorities?
Well, the board would. And we'll have to have bylaws, and we'll have executive committees, etc. My time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you so much.
So our next person has been removed?
They're saying that there's now a 10-minute break.
Okay, our next person
On the
withdrew.
schedule's not ready.
Okay.
So if you would, go ahead.
Our next person withdrew. And I will be withdrawing soon.
And that would be James Summar.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my schedule still had them, but on the schedule they've got a launch as a break for the next 10 minutes.
Is our next person here, Michael?
Not yet.
Okay, because it's not his time, I understand that.
The next one should be Michael Schlacter.
That name.
And this, do we know what these things mean? The 1 yes, 5 yes, 2 yes, 0 on this?
That's the points that, or the criteria that planning did of whether they're in an economically distressed location.
Okay.
So the one like us,
We don't even want to.
Steve Ganaway met 5 of the conditions?
Yeah,
Right.
and then it's color coded on this sheet also. This is yours. They're just some around on the condition.
Okay, I just want to look at it.
That was easy.
So I do apologize to y'all that I have to leave. I know y'all will carry out the best and ask all the questions that I would ask. I trust you all completely.
Okay, now this isn't,
Sharon's like not even
I'm just saying this isn't correct because Monterey Lee was also nominated, I thought, by a, community organization
Where are you looking at?
on this.
Okay, so did you see where if their name is capitalized, it means something?
See, it indicates candidate also nominated by petition and or community organization.
And who was the name?
Monterey Lee,
Yeah, Minister.
yes.
Well, we can just clarify that. I know that they had they're, putting all of these lists together, there's a few little typos here and there, so.
Exhibit D, Sheriff Durian. This is Michael Schlacter, is that who's candidate?
Yeah.
Even though he's here
Now, I
now,
wonder why that matters.
we still have to wait until 5:50 before we can
No
start.
doubt.
Okay.
And why does that matter?
What does what matter?
When we vote, we'll sort of vote in clumps, and we'll vote for all the people who were from economically.
No, I'm talking about
Whether they were,
capitalized in community
it's just to let you know in case you're interested in how people got nominated. Some
And-
people
and
want to
we'll-
know how people got nominated.
If they were nominated by the council
The
members.
reason why I was asking is because people were asking me if they needed to do the petition along with having
Yeah.
someone nominate them and
They could do
all of
any,
that.
all,
I
or
know, but
anything.
I'm just saying, because I told them that I thought one way was enough,
Yes.
but if they're going to get additional credit for having
It's
done
just you personally might give them additional credit. I might give them additional credit. You know what I mean?
In
Like it's
addition-
not.
But that's-
In
but-
addition, there are 2 different pools that we'll vote
Yeah,
from, and
that
they will
too.
be in the petition nominated pool for those 3 slots or those 7 slots.
But again, I think that's unfair, because that means that I didn't give each person that spoke to me and asked about that opportunity to have several means of
I
submission.
think probably just take that up with the vice mayor.
You'll do that.
Yeah, they want to remind us that we'll be recording. They want to remind us that we'll be,
That's fine.
they say they want to remind
You didn't like my candy and the
More
fact that I only
variety.
left the
Purples, I like
purples. Have you not noticed that I empty out all my purples and I put them in Angie's candy
Is
jar?
that why there were so many on top of her jar? Okay, I had to dig for that stuff.
I do. I'm that council
You're not-
member.
You're the phantom.
And then sometimes I get desperate and I'll eat the purples. Just makes me think of grape Tylenol.
Great Tylenol.
Grape Tylenol. I mean, that's what we had as children, the chewable grape Tylenol, and it just, it's like PTSD memories coming back of it. My parents holding me down and making me take that when I was sick.
All of a sudden it got real quiet in here.
Is it time?
Nope.
No, we got 5 minutes. Gotcha.
It's a grape Tylenol.
That was pretty good.
What other stories would y'all like to hear about my childhood?
We thought you were still.
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean, since we have the candidates here, why we couldn't just move on since the time
Oh,
was...
to try to keep us on the mark.
That's not the way they expected us to do it.
I mean, I understand, but
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Because if we get ahead, so.
This is at the request of the IT people, because they've got the slots that they're recording in all 4 rooms. And just make sure that everybody's starting and stopping at the same time. It just makes it easier for them to keep straight.
Thank you, Mike.
They didn't want us to to go shame the other committees when we were finished before them. You know, have we run around and
I'll go up to YouTube after this anyway.
Is there a break because somebody dropped out? Okay, yeah.
So that was one person out, we're down to 158 to go.
Come on down.
Put that in our refrigerator or freezer?
I don't think it's gonna. Sure, I'll probably forget it, but it was sold in there.
The freezer part or?
Yeah, freeze.
About 1 minute before the start.
Well, hello, we're glad you're here. My name is Brenda Haywood, and I'm the chair, and we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves, and then you can introduce yourself and address the questions, okay?
Yes.
Okay? Thank you.
I'm Kathleen Murphy. Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Sharon Hurt.
And again, my name is Brenda Haywood. Okay?
My name is Michael Schlacter. My interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board was brought about when Bob Nash asked me to consider being on it. But what went through my head was it's an opportunity to improve the relationship between the community and the police where it's strained, and make it what it really should be. And if we do need a functional police force, but we don't need a population that's terrified of it or being beat up by it. So that would be my reason to serve, to support that. Okay. My background with civil rights and equity issues. I haven't really been in any definite civil rights stuff. I worked, did a lot of pro-life stuff when I lived in Ohio. Did a lot of work there. I had several trips when I was a student engineer with a black fella, and the two of us, it was in the early 70s. I learned what it was like to be a black guy on the road trying to find a hotel. Even though the company had rooms for us, the hotel didn't. So that was a learning experience. The other is, there's been some books I've read. One is The Warrior, the militarization of the police is one, and the other was Search of Warmer Suns. And there's, there's another one, Equal Justice. Those three books made it very clear to me how our society has set up barriers to poor people, whether they're women or blacks or Hispanics, whoever they are. If they're in the poor side of town, they're going to have a hard time coming out of there. And Nixon started doing a lot of work to suppress the vote of those people, and it's going on today. So that's kind of what's in the back of my head as I would answer that question. And describe my background or experience with criminal justice and policing practices. I haven't had a lot myself. I haven't had any, actually. And there's a guy I meet with weekly about other stuff, but Rich McGee, I get quite an education from him generally and how things go from his perspective. And Bob Nash and I fish together, and so sometimes I'd hear things from Bob's side of the story, and sometimes it would be the same case. And then I'd read it in the newspaper, and the newspaper didn't have any of the facts. So, so anyways, I got some education in that regard, or some awareness of it. I have a son that's a police officer in Louisiana. He's a sheriff deputy in Jefferson Parish. And between him and his father-in-law, Ron Surpass, I get a lot of general education on what's gone on in the past, and some of the stuff that Ron's doing now to improve the sentencing and clean up this latest thing that's occurred at the federal level. His consulting firm that he's on was working on that. So it's an awareness thing, I suppose, and listening to some of my son's stories, but I don't get the whole story, but and Mom gets even less. So that's my background with it.
You mentioned conflict resolution a couple of times in your CV. Can you kind of expand on what your experience has been and how you would use that on the COB?
Okay. When I worked for General Motors and Saturn, I taught those classes, and I was in part of the organization development group. And so we would end up going into groups that had conflicts or problems in them. Some were actual racial or sexual problems, and some were perceived. And it was amazing to me the number of just arguments you can get into, and there was really nothing at the bottom of it, other than start making assumptions that, well, you did what to who? And then you're off to the races. And so but it's a fair amount of just finding out what the root cause is or what the issues are, and then trying to find a common ground. You probably aren't going to go one for one on where you got to go to a third point to get resolution on most issues. So did a lot of that in GM. I am an engineer, and I was doing this stuff through the personnel department. And then they had me working in Saturn in engineering just for a short period of time, but they kept me there because I understood engineers and could help them work through their stuff. And so that gave me a lot of experience there. The union trusted me. I was the management side of the house person, and the union trusted me to do work with mixed management union parties as well.
You're our second interview, so we don't have a whole lot of, we're not ready for a whole lot yet. So is there anything else you'd like to share that would make you a good fit on the committee?
I think the conflict resolution stuff is a definite tool I have in my background, and working issues where people can be in very strong disagreement. The right to life stuff is definitely one of those. And union and management, when they don't want to get along, it can be a challenge. So it can be.
What about your endurance? You know, sometimes we've had council meetings till 12 or 1 o'clock, and coming to a resolution sometimes can take a long time. You committed to giving the time and effort that it would require to do that, and a lot of times the perceptions that they are different, but they are real, and just wondered about your endurance and ability to handle sometimes vicious attacks, because we found that when we don't go the way that some people want us to go, they say things that's not nice.
Okay. There's been times in my work experience where, for example, with a car manufacturing, when your car line is shut down, it's costing you at least $5,000 a minute for just nothing happening. So people get very excited when it's 7 or 8 days long. And we had some of those, and it was a matter of working late nights. Sometimes we had 6 hours of sleep, and then you're back at it the next day, working through issues and so on, and getting people to admit where their problems really were and to solve those problems. So that's an experience that I've had with time. I guess maybe I'm assuming that we don't do this every day, but if we're engaged in an event, we would stick to the end of it, yes.
Well, we're down to like a minute and a half, and we really appreciate you, and if you would just complete this final statement, and then we'll be done. I would just like for the community to know. Could you complete that?
That I care about how the relationship between the police and the communities are, and that we need each other, and that we can't get along without each other, so we need to find a way to work together. And it may mean changing ourselves, but it also may mean changing the rules or the guidelines that the police have to move them along, which I discovered in the book of Militarization of the Police.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you want to flip it? No, we're supposed to keep it. No, he said to flip it. Okay, thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
I trust you all.
We're glad.
Oh, well, how are you?
Time to start.
Begin.
Well, first of all, we thank you for being here and thank you for wanting to serve. My name is Brenda Haywood and I'm the chair, and we'll go around and introduce ourselves, and then we'll have you to introduce yourself and answer the following 3 questions, okay?
Absolutely.
Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Sharon Hurt.
Nice to meet you. So, good evening. My name is Ashlee Davis. I'm sure you want to know a little bit more than just my name, so I'll go beyond that. I'm a native Nashvilleian. I am an inclusion and diversity practitioner. Have about a decade and a half of government experience. About 8 to 9 of those years I served within the Obama administration. Was both an intern and then asked to come on as full staff. And if you ask anyone who's worked at me, the best part of me is the fact that I'm a Nashvilleian. If I believed in tattoos, I'd probably have it tattooed somewhere, because I believe this is the greatest city in the world. My interest, my passion, and the purpose of me raising my hand and asking for an opportunity to serve in this capacity is that, first and foremost, I believe that when you are given the privilege to see and do the things that I've been able to accomplish in a short frame of time, that you need to ensure that the space and the stakes are equitable for others, right? And I have been afforded the opportunity to have my law degree at a short period of time, to professionally achieve as well. But one thing I can't say that I've had the opportunity to do is serve the people in the community of Nashville. And this is quite the opportunity and the experience. And it also serves as a great intersection of both my professional background and also my personal beliefs. And I think we all understand the immense opportunity ahead of us, but we also recognize that we need the right board members to push this in the right direction, and I just am thrilled to have that opportunity.
Okay, and we want you to make sure you hit.
Absolutely. Should I just go in order? Oh, I thought I was going to get like prompted. Sorry.
There's your prompts.
Thank you. So secondly, about my interest and my background, right? My background in familiarity with civil rights and equity, and so I served for 3 of my 4 years of college. I was on the University of Pittsburgh Judicial Review Board. The purpose of that board is to ensure that the punishments, also the judgments held down by the board of directors, was not unfair for students of color, for women. And we know that at times you've seen that folks can have the same offense but a different punishment. And so it was our job, an 8-member panel, to write when we felt necessary that the punishment did not fit the crime. I truly enjoyed that experience, but also learned some tough lessons. I realized that at times it can be quite incredibly hard to come to a decision with 7 other like-minded peers, even if you are looking at the exact same set of facts, right? But it's also an incredible opportunity to understand the importance of different voices. Beyond that, I also have served as a legal fellow and a clerk for PAMI, the persons with mental illness and disabilities. I was in that capacity for 3 years, both as a legal clerk and then also as a fellow. I also worked in equitable spaces in D.C. for LGBT offenders in the District of Columbia, and used my civil rights background to then decide that I wanted to go to Howard Law and further my education in that capacity. I usually get the question of, well, how in the heck did you land your first role at the White House? Well, actually, it all stemmed around civil rights, justice, and equity. I wrote a paper to the Director of Engagement, to the President, and shared with him that I felt they were missing a critical voice at the table, and that was the voiceless or the seemingly invisible. And that usually is those that are socially disadvantaged. Their socioeconomic background doesn't match that of those that are sitting at the top, as it were. And so he said, well, if you feel so passionately, finish that degree and then come and work for us. And I did just that. At my space in the White House, I had 3 years in the White House, and I actually worked in the Presidential Appointments Board, ensuring that we were appointing, quite frankly, men and women of color and different backgrounds. Through our space, we hired the first transgender White House staffer, and also looked to figure out exactly what was happening in our implicit bias hiring practices as well. It's not always that folks intend to do the wrong thing. It's usually the things that we don't see, that we don't know, that we're not aware of. And so we developed unconscious bias is what it ended up being called, training for our hiring managers within the White House. From there, I went to the Department of Agriculture and received a presidential appointment to work for Secretary Vilsack, and I became White House liaison. To date, the youngest, I'm sure, woman in person in general. Most folks look at me and think I'm an intern anyway, and to hold that position. I served in that capacity for 2 years, followed by being senior advisor to the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, where I oversaw our CRIAs, which is our Civil Rights Impact Analysis. And that ensured that when there was a firing or a hiring, when we decided to close a building in Phoenix, Arizona, or when we had our law enforcement officers down at the border with our Forest Service LEOs, that there was no undue or unintended negative impact on people of color or other race, ethnicity, or gender. Absolutely love the work. If I could pick anything in the world to do, it's always going to come back to the people and giving a voice to the voiceless. And before my time is up here, I'll explain a bit about my background and experience with working with criminal justice and share a bit about the things I haven't mentioned. And so 4 of my 8 years, I used that time to work with the Department of Justice's Community Relations Service. So CRS is usually called, within government at least, we know them as the peacekeepers of DOJ. And with their help, we coordinated 27, almost 28 if I got one more month, 28 community engagement summits. We actually did one here in Nashville at the Oasis Center, and we brought in the local police department along with the LGBT and other racial groups as well, and we had a day-long service where we gave them access to federal government services. If there was emergency needs, we did that as well. But the important part is that I did the coordination in the background on the side, but what the people saw were the law enforcement officers who cared and wanted to be there. And we also took the time to do that same unconscious bias training with those officers there as well. We did a very similar summit as well with our law enforcement officers with the Forest Service, which many people don't realize that the Forest Service has the same capacity with their law enforcement officers. And so I have that experience as well. I've continued to work very closely with our law enforcement and criminal justice space in all the cities that I've lived in, but Nashville, of course, is home, so that's it.
Wow.
So what made you leave D.C. and come back to Nashville?
The heat, it's like nasty heat, not cute heat, right? But
and
seriously.
ours is cute.
Oh, it's a lot cute when you think about those tall buildings and small spaces. And also, it's not home. I understand. I pitched to the president once. I swear to you, he'll tell you, I said, why don't you move this White House to Nashville? You'll love it way better. The food's better. And they all chuckled with me. But to be honest, I went there for the opportunity to serve. I told them I was never interested in staying. My next opportunity ended up being in Minnesota. And I went up to that company, and I now lead a global PR and external affairs space in 70-plus countries for them. But I told them after a year and a half, I've got to go home to Nashville. I said, you want to lose me or you want to let me come home? And they said, absolutely, go home, and we'll make it work. And so I'm blessed to have that opportunity. Blessed to be home.
Okay, we're down to approximately a minute and a half.
Yes, ma'am.
If you would complete this statement for me.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like for the Nashville community to know, as it relates to the COB board.
We've never had an opportunity like this, right? And we won't again. We won't be able to say we're going to start over. We realized that we didn't have the right components, but now is now, right? And here's what's amazing about it. These are one-year appointments, so we don't have to get it perfect, but we're going to get it darn good. We're going to get it close to right. And the people that come off are going to be able to pull people behind them. This is a momentous opportunity. So, yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
I just wanted to know, you think anybody will be concerned about your objectivity?
No, ma'am, I don't think so.
Okay, how are you going to diffuse that?
Well, you know, I worked on every, I think I wore the right tie to show you I can work on both sides, right? And also,
yeah, I love tie. I love the tie.
Thank you.
And the suit. Yeah.
Thank you. But absolutely not. And I'm willing to put in the work to prove that as well. I take good criticism and hard ones too. Yeah.
We thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley, I gotta leave. Can you just wait for me a minute?
First of all, we'd like to welcome you, Jamelia. Is that good? Yeargins? Okay. And my name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood, and I chair the committee, and I'd like for everybody to introduce themselves. You'll tell us who you are, and you will answer these questions in that order. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Nice to meet you. My name is Jamelia Yeargins.
Okay. And you can just answer these questions in that order.
All right. Just a brief explanation of why I want to serve on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons I wish to serve. Most importantly, I really want to serve my community. I want to give back to my community. I'm actually a senior at TSU currently in the criminal justice field in my bachelor degree. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
And don't be nervous, okay?
Okay. Let me see. And the reason I wish to serve on the board is really want to be a voice for individuals that I guess don't know, what avenue to go down or what questions to ask, or TSA laws, different questions that the community has. I would like to be a voice to get those answers for them and kind of get it out to them, if you will. My background and familiarity with civil rights and equity issues are, first off, I do not take advantage of my civil rights at all. I actually appreciate them. Let's see. There was a lot that went into me being able to, have rights, and with the education that I have acquired, it's really taught me how to be fair and impartial to different legal issues, and made me more open-minded of the legal ramifications, if you will. That's good. A description of my background and experience and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices. My background and experiences is they're really coming from TSU and Nashville State. I have a pre-law associate's degree, and I'm a senior, so I only have one more term at TSU with my bachelor, and I have acquired my ethics, more knowledge and skills and ability of moral reasoning, if you will, and problem solving, reflective judgment, and good communication skills as well, with the degree that I am acquiring. So this is kind of who I am, and trying to get a little more information about how I can help and how I can be an asset to the board.
Okay, questions?
On your form, you mentioned some occasions where you had felt discriminated against or harassed. Can you comment on how that will help you be a good COB member, and how it could possibly have an influence on your objectivity, and how you would deal with that?
Could you explain a little in depth what my answer was?
Yeah, sure. You wrote a lot. So this was describe your background, experience, and familiarity with civil rights and equity. As an African American, I had been discriminated against, harassed, and, sorry, my glasses aren't looking very well. And underpaid, had experience in educating for a position that was given to another person. Underpaid and unable to change districts.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
can you?
Yes, ma'am. So as a black female in my community, I am educated for a lot of positions that I believe I should have gotten and has been given to other individuals, unfortunately. It didn't stop me. I moved on and showed them who I was, where I could have gone a different direction, you know, and let them know that I am the individual for this job. About 6 months later, I actually got the position, showing my, you know, initiative and professionalism, if you will. Yes, ma'am. So that's how I pushed through my difficulties that I've come across. But I have, you know.
If there's a couple of things you would like the community to know as it relates to you being a candidate and possibly being selected for this board, what would you just like the community to know about you and how you feel about being a member?
I would like for them to know that I am for them, but you need to know what the laws and rules are as well. And with me being educated, maybe they would listen to what I have learned, and I learn to share. I don't learn just to, I'm not an individual that keeps my knowledge. So I like to educate my, you know, community of what rights they do have, and, you know, the correct laws to follow is what I would give to my community.
And that's what you would say to the community, right?
Definitely. Yes,
and
ma'am.
what message would you like to give the police?
We're listening. We're listening, honestly. Just explain to us what you would like for us to do. I mean, everyone makes mistakes. No one's perfect. But there's no need to disrespect anyone's professionalism. If I'm a professional and this is my job, I have to do my job, and you respect me to allow me to do my job, if you will, you know.
Thank you. All right, more question?
Well, I do. Maybe I might want to elaborate on that. You're saying when talking as a community leader to the police or the COB member to the police, that you would say you're watching them, you're understanding. Is that as a community you would be saying that, or as a COB member you would be saying that, or but also live within the structure of the law?
Of the law, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anything else? We have about a minute left. Anything else you'd like to leave us with before that minute expires?
I appreciate you all for the interview. Even, you know, if it doesn't go any further, I have gotten a lot of information, and I am glad it's come this far. I hope it does help communities, and as well as the police, you know, understand that we're here. You know, we're here to help, and I'm here.
Well,
if not.
and I think you do appear nervous, but you had the courage to want to serve and to come down here and be interviewed. And
Definitely.
that's impressive.
Definitely.
And we thank you so much. Thank you so much. We hope it wasn't too intimidating.
It was. It was.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Seconds.
Okay. That's good. Put that away. First of all, we'd like to welcome you. I'm the chair, and my name is Brenda Haywood, and we'll go around and introduce ourselves, and then you'll introduce yourself, and then you will answer these questions in that order, and then we'll just open it up for anything you would like to share with us. Would that be okay?
That would be perfect.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Berkeley Allen.
Yeah. Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Carmen Coats.
Okay.
And
I'm just observing. I'm Nick.
oh, hi Nick.
We're all council people.
Okay, but Nick is not.
Nick is
Okay,
not.
he's just okay.
He's observing.
Okay, briefly describe your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board. My interest in this is, I think it'd be a good way to serve the community. There's a lot of things that go on that you see the news. Sometimes that news may take it to the left, and sometimes it may not take it to the left. I kind of want to make sure that things are done according to the way they should be done. There's a lot of needless, senseless killing going on by police, and when I see this, it makes me sad. And I just want to make sure that when that happens, that everything is done by the book and it's done according to how it should be. It's just not someone saying they're fearing for their life when there's someone running away from them. Okay. My background and familiarity with civil rights and community and equity issues. The Civil Rights Act in 1964 was the most significant social movement in America. It did away with segregation to where black people could go into businesses, restaurants, hotels, and go to the same schools as white people. This is something that should have always been, and it wasn't. It should have. When that happened, it was not embraced by everyone. It did not take place just overnight like it should have. And I just need to make sure that things just keep going forward, moving forward, and bringing everyone together like they should be. And my background and experience with criminal justice and policing practices, I've never really been in trouble with the police, but again, when you're watching television and you see things that go on, you question. Now, nothing and no one is perfect, and there's always room for improvement in everything, and that includes the police department. And I know a lot of them do not want this oversight board just by listening and being on the internet and reading things. But if you have nothing to hide, then there shouldn't be any reason not to have this board. So.
Thank you. Question? We go around.
So, now it's, in addition to the reasons that you think you're a good fit for the board, and what do you see as the goal of the board? What can it accomplish, and how does it get there?
The way I see this, right or wrong, is you have a committee that when there's an incident that happens between the police and just a regular person, and there's questions to it, then the oversight board steps in and they start to ask questions, and they try to get to the bottom to make sure and ensure that the police are doing the things that they should be doing in accordance with the laws, and not just, just randomly and just doing things just off the cuff.
Thank you.
You, in your application, mentioned serving on the grand jury and it being an eye-opening experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that would inform what you're doing?
Yeah, that was it was long. It was 3 months. I was on there at the time of Scott Peterson and couldn't talk about it then, but I can now because it was so long ago, and that was one of the more interesting things that we did. It was very interesting to be in there every day, to be on the inside of the criminal activities, and to see they would bring books like the binder that you have there with pictures, and it may be a dead person or a child that was abused, and it was very interesting to be on the inside of that and to also be able to help to put and keep these people behind bars that had done these terrible things. It was just, you know, just wanting to help and feeling sorry for the victims, because and there were a lot of them. It was bad.
Did it increase or decrease your faith in the system as you saw it played out there?
It did not decrease because we had to decide whether or not there was enough evidence to bound these people over to the grand jury. So, of course, we deliberate over this, and depending on the case, one may take just a little while, one may take a lot longer. But in my dealings with that, I had faith in the system, because of being on the inside, knowing everything that had happened in the cases. It's a little bit different when you're sitting on the outside and you're just getting news from a news agency. But it's when you're in there and you're seeing things and you're seeing evidence and you're hearing evidence and people are coming in and talking and telling you what they know. It makes you have faith that the system works.
Mm-hmm. With using your experience serving on the grand jury and the, I don't want to say the power that they have, but the influence they have on a case is very substantial.
Yes.
So how would you relate that to the COB? Serving on the COB board, how would you feel the responsibility, where does the responsibility end there?
The difference with that, I think that the power that we had was to bound the person over to the grand jury and to set the money limit on the bail, on the bond. The power with the oversight board, I think more is in an advisory capacity to make recommendations that if the board thinks that something did not go as it should have gone, then the board needs to speak with each other and come to a conclusion and everyone be on the same page and make recommendations. I don't think that anyone would have the power to say, you did that wrong, let the person go. Of course not. That's not what the board should be for. We're not police. We're just ensuring that everything's done above board.
We're down to probably a minute and a half now. And for the sake of the community, if you were sitting in front of a group of policemen and community members, what message would you like to leave with them? I would just like for these two groups to know.
I would like for these groups to know that we're all human. It doesn't matter what color you cut, whoever, you bleed red. Okay? We're all brothers and sisters, and everyone needs to be treated equally. And don't make any difference in anyone just because a person's of another background or color. You treat them the same way that you treat your brother, your blood brother.
Okay. We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I would just like for us to introduce ourselves, and then I would like for you to introduce yourself. And then we have 3 specific questions that we would like for you to answer, and then we'll open it up a little bit. Is that okay?
Excellent, yes.
Okay, my name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood, and I'm the chair, and we have other council members here, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
I'm Kate Tucker.
Okay. If you would just start with question number 1.
Yes. First off, I just want to say that I'm honored to be here with you, and I'm humbled to be nominated. I am an artist, an activist, a community organizer, and creative director of an organization called Bright Heart. And Bright Heart is a community building civic engagement initiative. We work primarily with artists and several different organizations to connect volunteers to orgs and then orgs to resources. So in my work with Bright Heart, I have been blessed to work with the majority of the organizations who put together the community oversight referendum and brought it to the ballot. Most specifically or closely with Gideon's Army, and we did a mural painting block party in the Parkway Terrace housing community this past fall. We were able to bring together 500 people and do a collaborative art project that we took input from the Parkway Terrace housing community members, especially the students and children there, and worked with them throughout the summer, and then different artists throughout the city led the creative vision of that. Working with Rashida and with Deirdre at Gideon's Army was incredible, and we continue to support initiatives that surge workers' dignity and NAACP also bring the way we do that, and also with Clemmy Greenlee at Nashville Peacemakers. So we'll send them volunteers, or we'll send them resource opportunities as best we can. I myself, being an artist, I believe that change moves at the speed of trust, and everything for me, I think it's relational, and I think we have a lot of healing to do in our city, and so when someone posed the possibility of nominating me, I had not considered myself for this position, but I am absolutely willing, and the more that I leaned into it, that's what I decided to pursue. So my background, and I do want to say, I feel like all 3 of these questions are one and the same for me. I feel like, again, in my work as an artist and as an organizer, I've heard a lot of stories, and I've had an opportunity to work with the leaders of these organizations, whether it be in heading up the Women's March Conference, the programming for that with the Artivism track, or in working on the documentary that I'm finishing right now about Walter Delbridge, who was a student civil rights leader, and marching in Atlanta, attending Morehouse University, and leading a march the day and a speech the day that Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. I've worked with Walter for the past 5 years. I've been in this community for the past 8 years, and I feel like it was a slow awakening for me, because I grew up in a rural area where there was not a police force, and my first encounter with the police as a white woman, it was not a terrifying experience for me, and I started to see it differently when I moved here, and I was asked by Justin Jones, who's a student leader and now at Vanderbilt Divinity School. He was at Fisk at the time, and he asked me to go with him and some students to the Trump rally when Donald Trump came to town in March of 2017. And he wanted me to just be there as an observer with them. And I watched a police officer pick Justin up and move him physically. After Justin and I were doing the same action. It was a nonviolent protest. Justin's a leader in that sort of nonviolent protesting and building the beloved community, and I was shocked because it was happening right in front of me, and I was doing the same exact thing. I also noticed my tendency. I taught high school. That was my original adult role in my early 20s, and my tendency when I was with the students was to tell them to stop. No, don't engage with don't try to protest because we don't want an incident to occur. And I realized that they knew what they were doing and they had an intentionality about it, and I was there just to observe and to support. And for me, that whole experience was incredibly eye-opening, right down to the very, the complete understanding, like, of a switch flipping to where, like, safety for me is completely different than it is for them. And then being asked to walk home with them to Fisk because they were concerned for their safety when I am actually in no way able to protect them any more than they could protect themselves. So that was an eye-opening experience for me. At the same time, I went to Vanderbilt, and they were doing the Truth and Reconciliation Project, and the Driving While Black report was released in 2016, and they were doing those talks following that. And I think that was just the beginning of me working with Justin more and thinking about ways that we could incorporate social justice and restorative justice in particular. I am on the board of One Voice Nashville, and we do a lot of work with the Juvenile Justice Center. I was just there yesterday, and I just heard a beautiful spoken word piece by Maisha Brown, who is right now trying to get basically her bail together before January 24th, or she'll be shifted into the adult system. So working with those youth, One Voice Nashville works to build bridges through narrative journalism and storytelling programs. And so that's been, over the past few years, my kind of awakening, and I feel like what I want to address and what I'm doing in my work with Brightheart and what I'm doing in my work with One Voice is really just ways that we can holistically approach the situation by restoring dialogue, restoring methods of communication, restoring and building trust. I think that I hope that this board is not just watching videos of young black men being shot in the streets in broad daylight. I hope that this board is also able to, because I hope that that never happens, and I hope that we can look at it more systemically and say, what about restorative justice can we do to prevent future violent crimes from occurring? What can we do about our bail system? How can we work with what's happening in MDHA communities? I live in MDHA housing. I live in the 19th district, which has the highest number of UCR Part 1 offenses. I know you guys know all this. And I see it, and I have shifted from looking for crime and looking out in the neighborhood watch sort of way for crime, and just every time I see a police car pulled over, I'm looking to see what's happening with what is the police officer doing. And I think that that's been a huge shift for me, and I just hope that whatever work I'm doing with Brightheart, with community organizing, with One Voice, if I were to be brought on this board, whatever work I do moving forward with that, I just feel like that's where my heart is. I also understand that there are several people more qualified than I am at this and have backgrounds in criminal justice, and I know that your work is very intense to choose who is on this board, but I have full faith that it will be robust and strong, and thank you again.
Oh, the question, we're down to 2 minutes. You have a question, I have a comment. You good?
Have at it. Yep.
You good? Okay, we're down to 1.5 minutes.
Okay.
And if you were speaking to a group of policemen and people in the community, and if they asked you, what would you just leave with them? What would you want them to know as just a final statement or an appeal? What would you like for them to know?
Policemen in the community?
Uh-huh.
That we need to have a conversation, and that we are asking for a covenant to be established that would be human-centered policing, that would establish human-centered policing practices so that faith can be restored, and faith and trust and respect.
Okay. We thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you, you too.
Sit at the chair right here.
Good evening, everyone.
Amen.
Get to turn it on.
Ready? Hello, how are you?
Just wonderful.
I'm so glad. I'd like to introduce myself, and the other council people introduce themselves, and then you would introduce yourself, and you'll start right here and go down the list and answer the following questions, okay? My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood, and I'm the chair.
Berkeley Allen.
Bill Prideborn.
Dave Rosenberg.
Okay.
Okay, first, if I may start out by sending my resume around.
No, we
you
have
could
it.
be looking at, no ma'am, it goes a little deeper than what's that. But anyway, I feel like that I have grew up in poverty areas here in Nashville all my life. And I was one of those kids that didn't have a mother and a father. So the adversary can be really rough. And for me to go through that without support and with the disabilities, disorders that I was born with, well then that's even more difficult because a lot of times, you know, it's not understood in the schools or within the family. So the family structure was broke down as well because no one's in charge, pretty basically. So that leaves nothing but the streets. And that brings trouble, learning experience as well. So I feel like that the kids today, well then, they haven't had anyone to rise up out of the streets that's really been in poverty, that's been struggling without a mother and a father. So I have the blueprint to bring them out of there, and more than that, I have the knowledge to bring a better dialogue between the police that works in the communities. And I understand why the younger kids or teenagers or young adults, why they don't feel so comfortable when they are approached as well. I have that experience too. Nevertheless, well then I seen early that this wouldn't work for me, so I joined the military because often you hear that can make you out of a man. So I went in there. However, well then with my disability, well then it didn't serve me well. Nevertheless, though, I got an outstanding recommendation and an honorable discharge. And so coming back into the street life, civilian life, well then there's nothing like sit up where you go through the military. So this is a new ball game as well. And jobs wasn't available, so you wandering around out in the streets again. So I figured that this wouldn't serve me in the benefit of me trying to see who I am or search for my identity. So I decided that this wasn't going to get it, so I went back to school. I'm a non-traditional, and with returning back to school, well then I was enlightened on a whole lot of things that I was thinking that confides in life, but that was only confined in the community or the society which I would roam in. So this gave me a broader, open mind to address issues in between living and law. And when you kind of understand where your place is as a citizen and not influenced by others, well then you can understand why that law enforcement are, let's say, so gravitating to do their job, and yet and still we are not really doing our job to the best of our ability to make it any easier for them. So I understand that that's what brings the dialogue about. So me going back to school, I graduated, top of my class, but that wasn't enough because I'm still out here lost. So I decided to further my education. I went on to college, and I went to a community college, Nashville Tech. I went to Howard University in D.C. too because I wanted to get more than what I was getting at the college institution. It wasn't really putting things all the way in perspective with the law as well and understanding it. So I came back to TSU and finished up my degree in criminal justice. And every semester I was there, where then I made the honor roll and I received the National Dean's list as well. But that still wasn't good enough because just because I saw my way through this and navigated it, where then that doesn't satisfy me, that I look back and so many others just like myself, they are still without knowledge and still doesn't have a direction. And I think I can help them with that as well as open dialogue and help law enforcement to understand what they are looking at or what provokes them to not be more compelling to communicate on a more sensible level. So this is why I am petitioning for this position, and it didn't make me any difference if it paid or didn't pay. We all have some kind of calling, and until you find your calling, where then it's almost like you just working to take care of you and your family or your friends, and I want to do more than that. However, the next question is describing your background and familiar with the civil rights issue. Like I said, I'm a criminal justice major, and what seems to be, you know, or what looks like to the average person, where then it may not be, because we have ways and law that you have rules and regulations, how you have to look at different situations, and you can't look at them as the same, because even though they look similar, they are different, and most of the time individuals are different too. Nevertheless, though, sometimes it's more than one individual, so you got to put that in perspective as well. But the judge usually gives the orders on how we are to conduct when we are in the jury and the way we're looking at a situation, and that's how I think that we have to follow those rules.
Okay, that's beautiful. We're down to 1.5 minutes, and if you could just complete this statement, and then we'll be done, and we appreciate you so much. If you'll just complete, I would just like for the community to know.
Well, I have served in security in the military. I have served in security as well as here in Nashville, working at Kmart's and the dollar store. And I just feel like I can be a great asset, and I don't feel like there's anyone else that would be more likely to be able to contribute this between the citizens and the police.
I appreciate you so much. Great job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was nice meeting you all, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
We just sit at the chair at the end of the table.
Good evening. How's everybody?
Good evening. How are you?
Oh, how you doing, young lady?
I'm doing
Don't you look
good.
just as beautiful as usual?
She's always snappy.
We're getting ready to get started. My name is Brenda Haywood, and I'm the chair. And we have other council members. They will introduce themselves. Then you introduce yourself, and then you go right down the list and answer the following questions, okay? All right.
I'm Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Okay, you can just tell us your name.
Steve Ganaway.
Okay, you can ask the following questions.
Answer the following questions.
Sir?
Why do I think I want to be on this oversight board? I think I have a lot to contribute to this oversight board. I have been on both sides of the law as a younger man. But thank God I'm on the other side now. And during my experience being on the other side, I found out what's, should I say, right and what's wrong. And in my years of experience with what was wrong, partially it was me. And I discovered that. So I found another side to get on, which was right. Now I spend most of my time, other than my work, trying to deal with kids in the community, applying myself to a lot of community activities, trying to turn kids into other directions. And I don't know whether you all know it or not, but I'm in the funeral home business, and I bury a lot of these kids out here today, and I deal with a lot of these kids out here today, and I deal with a lot of these mothers and a lot of these fathers out here today. And you ask me, why do I think I need to be on this oversight board? I don't think nobody in this room is able to do what I'm able to do. I don't think nobody can get out of their bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and go here in these housing projects and talk to these people in this housing projects when they lose their loved one. But when I pull up, it's Mr. Steve, Mr. Ganaway, or Mr. Undertaker. That's the respect I get from these people. And when the officer that's on the scene, lots of times he's not able to calm people down and talk to people. But when I show up, I say, come right on over here. Let me talk to you. Let me explain to you why your loved one has to be in this house for 4 or 5 hours. Let me explain to you what the process is. And the officer will come back and he said, well, I don't know how we will handle this if you wasn't here. You do a good job in what you do. So that's just, I could go on and on and on, but I know you all got a lot of things to do, and I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. And I think I discussed my background with that too, huh? Say, well, we'll be here all night.
No, we won't. You have a total of 10 minutes. But we could be.
This oversight board, I think, is something that's very needed in Nashville, and I'm glad that it's here. And back in the 60s and 50s and the 70s and 30s, I've seen a lot of things, I've experienced a lot of things, and I've been with a lot of things. And I think that I'm able to make the right decision in knowing what's right and knowing what's wrong with making these decisions. And you have to be on both sides. I guess the point what I'm trying to get to is that you have to be on both sides, and you have to understand what's happening on both sides. I know what's happening. You couldn't give me a gun and a badge and get me to take these men and women place out here that serves this community. I wouldn't do it. It's a dangerous, dangerous job. I don't think they get enough money. You couldn't pay me enough money to do it. I wouldn't do it. I'm going to give you a little bit of this right here, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I was out on a call about 2-3 weeks ago, going out Metro Center, and I was stopped in a blackout van, which we use at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the officer stopped me. The tail light was out, which I didn't know it. And I looked back, and it was cold, it was raining, and I looked at this young officer, and I seen it from my rearview mirror. This guy he was just a little terrified. He didn't know who I was in that van, but when I caught what was happening with him, I immediately let down every window in my car, in that van, and cut the interior lights on in that van. And when he got to the back of that car, and whatever reason they do this, touched the back of that car, he was able to see through that whole car. I wanted him to feel comfortable, and I wanted to be safe. It's not that I had to do it. It's something that I done to make myself feel safe and make him feel safe. And he didn't give me a ticket for that tail light.
Question, Bradmore?
Well, I guess the same question I asked earlier. What do you, in your opinion, what do you see the capacity of the Oversight Board being? More of a advisory board, or more of a, well, not policy, because policy can be advisory, but more of a, I hate to use this word judgmental, but for lack of another better word, one that kind of dictates resolve and dictate, maybe override policy within a ruling of that same case that you would consider that you're reviewing. In other words, is it more of, would you look at more of advisory or more of a take action to what you're reviewing?
I would like to be more of a mediator, to sit there and just to hear and observe everything on both sides of the issue, then come up with something that I would suggest of my opinion. That's about all I could do, is just give you my honest and fair opinion after reviewing everything. But if you go by these computers and you go by the TV, and it could be fake news or whatever, but you have to just weigh out everything. Then just give my conclusion on what my thoughts would be on it.
Thank you.
What do you see as compliments to you on the board? You clearly feel that I've been on both sides of the law role on the board.
I don't think nobody that comes into this room right here is more qualified than Steve Ganaway. I don't think nobody, and I can honestly say I don't think nobody. Because I am so busy, but I'm willing to take out of my time. I work 24/7, but I'm willing to take out of my time to do this right here. I don't have to do this. I'm here because I want to be here. I'm not here expecting anything. I'm here because I want to be here. I don't go to these Stop the Violence. I don't run these Stop the Violence things that I do. I don't go to all these speaking engagements because nobody's paying me, because I go there because I want to do something to help the community and help stop the violence, because I am sick and tired, and I am tired of burying our young people. We are burying our future, whether people believe it or not. We're buried. I just left the cemetery this morning, so, with a young man. So, this is constantly every day. So I'm trying to do something to try to stop these things. And a lot of people don't understand. Like I said, these officers, I'm not 100% police. I'm not 100% for some of these young people out here, because sometimes people bring things on them that cause things to happen. And I know this. I hear this every day. I see it every day. I work with it every day.
Well, we're down to 1 minute, so you have 30 seconds to leave with the community. If there's one thing you would like for them to know, what would you like for them to know?
That I'm here for you.
We thank you so
all right,
much.
Let's say what.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You don't want this thing. You don't want this thing to start ringing and going on.
Thank you very much. Hello, and thank you for being a part of this election process.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. I'm the chair. We have 3 other council members. They will introduce themselves, and then you will introduce yourself, and you will answer these 3 questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Bill Pridemore. I'm sorry you folks had to put up with Bill.
It's tough.
He's lovely.
He's pretty easy to love it. My name is Robert Nash. I'm a resident of South Nashville down on Ashlee Drive. I spent 33 years at the police department and retired as commander of the East Precinct. Graduated at MTSU with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I've been to several command schools since that time, lots of in-service. In all candor, I was opposed to this particular Civilian Oversight Board. Even if you were for civilian oversight, I thought this was kind of a bad structure and still have concerns about it, and I think that's one of the reasons I want to be here. I think this has a lot of potential to go wrong if you don't have good people on it, serious folks that can be fair and objective and sensitive to police community relations. In my past, I've always said, you know, there's never been a riot in the city because the waterworks didn't get a pipe right, but police and community tensions have been the source of lots of controversy, and so I think it's very important that this board work as envisioned and hoped for and help improve community relations and with the police department. My civil rights issues, I was certainly as a law enforcement officer, I spent 15 years in patrol out on the streets and in many neighborhoods of color. And I think you learn that all folks aren't bad and all folks aren't good, and learn to work with all kinds of people in those neighborhoods. I certainly have an interest in history too. In Nashville, I think it's kind of one of the premier cities. We had the sit-ins here back in Jim Crow, and historically that's just a blink of an eye. So a lot of those wounds are still in the midst of healing, and even if you weren't the person that was taken from the stool at the Woolworths down here, your son and your grandchildren still feel that, and we're still overcoming that as a society, not just in Nashville, but nationally, and so I think we have to be very sensitive to that issue and those issues even today. It's still a work in progress. I spent, number 3, I spent 15 years, like I said, in patrol, spent a lot of it in project areas. I also spent 6 years as president of the Fraternal Order of Police, where I helped defend officers and deal with disciplinary issues from the labor side, and then I spent 11 years as a captain here, 5 of those as commander of the East Precinct, and certainly had to deal with disciplinary issues on the management side when folks would not do right. So I have lots of experience on both sides of that equation. And certainly I'm familiar with policing practices. I think kind of go back and forth to civil rights again. We've got the 4th Amendment and the 14th Amendment and the like that we have to be enforcing and obeying and finding ways to work within.
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
You, I mean, it sounds like perhaps you have a vision of how this can work well. I mean, now that we've got it, it sounds like not only have you said, okay, I'm gonna make it work well. So what does that look like to you? You talk about the structure of it and also, I guess, just the focus of it. Can you talk us through that?
I think we've got to be fair and objective to the police department. I mean, I want to protect the rights of the men and women out here. as well as the rights of our citizens out here. I think it's going to, no grandstanding. I think we've all got to be pretty reasonable, again, objective and fair, and willing to come to the table and hear everybody out. And where these haven't worked, it becomes a potential for people to get out here and grandstand, and I think that'd be very harmful to this whole process. So it's kind of work within the group and give and take, and be reasonable.
I have a question. Serving, well, as I know Commander Nash, as the Commander Nash, and through my time on the police department, but during the time you were East Commander, you dealt with disciplinary issues where you discipline officers, and also how did that relate? How did you, how do you relate that to the community? I mean, were they, when you had issues dealing with people of the community, that you disciplined the officers for something, not necessarily as much as a administrative order, but more of an issue with what was done.
Discourtesy or something?
Yes, something to that effect. I mean, you dealt with many of those occasions, you worked them out. There was a time when the commanders had the sole responsibility, unless it was something major, of handling those disciplinary issues. Is that correct? So you dealt with that on a large, I mean, there was a time there where you had a lot of those functions of discipline, trying to get the community and officers together because of disciplinary action.
Yeah, well, short of it being something major or something where somebody didn't feel comfortable coming to these precincts and they went to the Office of Professional Accountability.
Right.
That was one of my primary responsibilities, is to make sure those complaints got addressed, and you start with the officer and the complaining person, and let's hear both sides of this, and then look around to see what kind of evidence or any witnesses that might be available to substantiate one side or the other, and then try and come up with some fair end to it.
And then I'll ask this, as I've asked several others, how do you view the role of the COB? Is it more of a objective, well, advisory type board that assists in making sure the issues are all resolved, or more of a, as I did, I think the first time, I think the applicant was had attended or been on the grand jury, looked at it. You can look at it two different ways: more of a take action, resolve it, or advise, be advisory capacity. How do you feel the COB, what their real true position should be?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons to give it rise to this, obviously there's a large part of this community that doesn't feel they're being heard. So we've got to find some way to make sure that in whatever we're doing, we make sure that they feel that they're being heard like they weren't before. I hope at the end of the day it should be more advisory in its purpose. I think we have already lots of places where investigations and discipline take place. Now, obviously, I think part of this process, if the community and this board aren't happy with an investigation that's done, we'll be able the ability to have our investigators look a little further into the matter. So that's certainly, you're going to do both. I would hope primarily we end up being advisory in nature.
You've done a beautiful job. We're down to 30 seconds. If there's one thing that you would like for the community to know, what would you like to say?
This board has the potential to really go very good or very bad. And I hope that whoever you pick people that want to make it work out.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We appreciate you so much.
Appreciate it.
Sit at the end of the table.
How are you all?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
We're good.
Well, hello, and thank you for being here. We're getting started, and I'd like to introduce myself, and the other council members will introduce themselves. My name is Brenda Haywood, and we have
Berkeley Allen,
Bill Pridemore,
Dave Rosenberg.
Okay.
and we'd like for you to start by introducing yourself and go right down the list and answer these 3 questions. Then we'll kind of open it up for you to elaborate, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
My name is Mable Osemwegie, and question number 1. My interest in serving on the community. Do we have to go down the line, or can I kind of mix it up?
You can mix it up.
Okay. Please describe your background and our familiarity with civil rights and equity. I think you all have the answers to the questions that you all sent out, and I have had issues myself as far as bias being shown towards me because I am female, and because my perception was because of my race. Now, whether or not that was true or not, I don't know, but that was the way I perceived it. Number 3, describe my background. I did send in my resume. I didn't know if you all had a chance to look at it.
We have, but we would like for you to just answer in person. We could get more of a feel for who you are. If we could.
Okay, I am a retired Metro Police officer. I have a degree, and my undergraduate degree is in criminal justice as well as my master's degree, and I am currently an attorney, a defense attorney. I do family and criminal work. I've been with the police department since, 1 month shy of 25 years, and I retired in 2013. Number 1, briefly explain your interest. I think that the Oversight Board is a really good board to have, because a lot of people in the community have the perception that with the police department, any wrongdoing that they perceive on the part of the police department, with the police department investigating themselves, that they're going to try to cover up for themselves. So I think it's a good idea to have a citizens committee to kind of overlook things and then give their recommendations as they see fit from their investigation. To short, I mean, I know this is time sensitive, so.
Are you good? Go ahead.
Okay. Do you want me to, do you have any questions in order for me to elaborate, or?
Are you finished elaborating on those 3?
I think with that and my resume and the answers, I'm thinking.
Well, let's.
So I should get you to talk a little bit about how in the world you were a police officer and you got your law degree while you were serving on the police, and then began to serve as legal teacher to the police. I mean, I'm just so impressed at how you made all that happen. Can you just kind of talk us through that?
I don't really like talking about me, so that's why I'm it's really questions.
Because we want to know.
We need you to talk about you. We need that.
Being a police officer was my childhood dream. I always wanted to be. My mom was a public servant. My dad was very outgoing. He always met friends, if you want to put it that way. And I've always been concerned about, I never liked bullying. If you understand that, in school, I never liked any kids picking on another child because I would always be the one to try to come to their defense. So I never really liked bullying. And I thought that being a police officer, but one thing, and I know it's a cliche, you want to help people, which is really true. I really want to help people. And I wanted people to also see that not all police officers are bad, not even to be perceived as being bad. While I was on the police department, I attended law school because that was something my dad wanted me to do. He's telling people when I came to college I was going to be a lawyer. And I was like, it never crossed my mind, but I did it for him. So once I was I graduated from law school, I went to the academy, I was teaching law, I was also in-house counsel, where I gave legal advice to the people in the police department. And after retiring, which I really enjoyed being on the police department, I'm not one of those people that left with a sour note. I loved it, and I would have stayed had it not been for the attorney degree, because I wanted to try to fulfill this for my father. So I did that. But that's what I did, and I really enjoyed it. And I really loved being a police officer.
So you got an unusual perspective, I think, because you see it both from the police side as well as from citizens who are often distrustful of police. And I think everyone's hope for this board is that we will increase trust with this. Can you kind of talk through how you think that can be accomplished through the COB?
I think that having citizens, non-sworn officers on the board will help people to understand that, okay, if I could just say, and I know this is not part of it, but the Citizens Police Academy has helped a lot of people understand what police officers go through and how they perceive things and how you have to make a decision in a split second. But also, police officers, not all police officers do what they're supposed to do. And there are a lot of people who have had bad experiences with police officers. And in their minds, and it could be true, unjustly so. So if you have someone who's not a police officer on the board, and a board that can explain or investigate and then explain to the community that, well, this is what our investigation showed, good or bad. This is what our investigation showed, they would be more apt to believe that committee. And I really would like to see this board succeed. I really do, because I think it's very important. It's important to show that with the police officers not investigating themselves, there may be some truth to whatever the outcome is, whatever the outcome.
What do you see as the primary goal of this board?
I don't know if there's one goal, but a goal would be to help bridge the mistrust between the community and police, to help the citizens understand that an investigation has been done and the investigation is not swayed from people who are police officers, if that makes sense.
It does.
Because OPA is within the police department, and people may perceive that because it's OPA, police investigating police, they're skewed, so they're going to always protect the police. So if you have someone who's not, then it would be they would be apt to believe it a little bit more. That's my perception anyway.
She answered my question.
Did she right there? Yeah, that's good. So we're down to a couple of minutes now. If you could speak to the community and leave them with one thing, just complete this statement for me. I would just like for the community to know.
I would like for the community to know, as a member of the board, if I'm not being too forward, that the board will do everything in its power to let the people know that an accurate investigation has been conducted, that this is the finding of the board, and these are our recommendations to the chief as to what should occur, whether good or bad, it should occur. And hopefully, and I'm thinking that it's the goal of the board to help alleviate any misgivings or misapprehensions or misperceptions that the community may have regarding an investigation involving police misconduct. That's what I'm hoping.
We thank you so much.
Okay.
We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night.
You too. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Got a minute.
Thirty seconds.
Counting down, Mr. King.
Reading through my absurdly long application.
It's one of the most fun to read,
It really is.
Actually, I cut out a whole lot of stuff because I didn't realize it was Friday. I thought it was Monday we were doing it. I was like, oh no.
This reads ridiculous.
Well, Mr. Paul King, we're going to get started.
Okay.
And I want you to know that my name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. We have 3 other council members, and they will let you know who they are. Then you will introduce yourself, and if you don't mind answering these 3 questions, and then we'll kind of open it up and allow you to elaborate, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Berkeley Allen.
Bill Pridemore.
Dave Rosenberg.
Okay. And I'm Paul King.
Okay.
I'll briefly explain my interest. I want it to succeed, and I think I might be able to help. That is unfortunately the shortest answer I can possibly give on it. I'm a native Nashvilleian, so I've been here my entire life other than a couple of years where I went up to New York and decided, come back. So I would like to help out the town. I'd like to help out everybody if I can. My familiarity with civil rights and equity issues, I gotta say mostly just reading. It has not affected me directly. I have only been pulled over for driving while poor. That has been about it. Those are described in my application. Most of my interactions have been okay. Well, my background experience with criminal justice and policing practices, not very much. As stated, I've had interactions. Most of them are listed there. There were a couple that were too minor to bother listing that would have gone on another page, and that was already getting to be an epic thing. So that's all I managed to come up with for an intro speech. Sorry.
What do you see as the primary goal of this board?
I'm hoping illuminate some of the processes, bring some sort of transparency to the field, and maybe right a wrong. That's what my hope is. The goal is right a wrong or right wrongs, or with the limited amount of time that the first group has, maybe set the stage for the second group.
Mm-hmm. When you speak in terms of to right a wrong, how would you define a wrong?
Sometimes things slip through the cracks and nobody wants to look down in the cracks. If I can't give any specifics, but I'm sorry, I would have to be given a choice of things, and it's like, oh, that obviously doesn't look right. Let's take a look at it.
What do you, I guess, see as your particular gift that you would we'll ultimately have 11 people on this board. We've elected the first 2, so we know we've got a lawyer and a history professor. And
I'm the computer technician.
The computer technician.
The network technician, the person who looks at all the documentation, figures out what people are missing and how the implementation of the process is going to get screwed up later down the line.